of the Tacoma Park City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Kovar,
Here.
Councilmember Dabala,
Present.
Councilmember Costick,
Here.
Councilmember Siemens,
Present.
Councilmember Searcy, and Councilmember Smith.
We went a little out of order.
Yeah, we did. Just like to make sure everybody's awake.
Keep everybody on their toes. All
That's
right.
right.
Thank you. Looking at our agenda, moving forward on Wednesday, March 9th, we will be back in person in the community center auditorium. We will start at 6:30 with a presentation of the minor master plan update. This is the minor master plan update, the section of the city that encompasses the former campus of the Washington Adventist Hospital area. And there's more information on the website. Our regular meeting will begin at 7:30. And our voting session includes the first reading ordinance adopting a redistricting plan. If all goes well tonight, hopefully we will have the first reading next week. And then we have second reading ordinances regarding installation of traffic calming on the 7900 block of Glenside Drive, the 6700 and 6800 block of Prince George's, and the 6400 and 6500 blocks of 4th Avenue. And then we will have a single reading ordinance approving procurement of police mobile data terminals. Our work sessions next week includes the police department annual report and the police chief's advisory board review of the Reimagining Public Safety report and recommendations. On Wednesday, March 16th, the council meeting will again begin at 6:30 with a presentation of a community science fellow project assessing how to prioritize stormwater infrastructure under a changing climate. Our regular meeting will begin at 7:30 with the second reading ordinance adopting a redistricting plan. And our work sessions that night will be a presentation of pavement conditions. Tentatively, we have a red light camera contract work session. And we also have a public safety management plan contract award work session on that, and a presentation of the general fiscal health of the city. Then on Wednesday, March 23rd, our council meeting will begin at 7:30. Our voting session that night will be a single reading ordinance awarding a contract for the public safety management plan. Tentatively, our work sessions that evening are an update from the sustainability manager, a discussion of plans for ARPA funds allocated for social service partnerships, navigators, and direct assistance, and tentatively a discussion of the sign ordinance. We will not be meeting on Wednesday, March 30th, as that is the 5th Wednesday of the month. And we also want to make sure staff has plenty of time to prepare, because we get right into budget right after that. And we have the presentation of the city manager's budget in April. Before we go further, I would like to just take a moment at the beginning of our meeting to acknowledge the world events that are taking place in the Ukraine right now. I know Councilmember Kovar is going to speak to this later during council comments, but I did want to say at the top of our meeting that we send our prayers and thoughts to the people in the Ukraine, and to those who are in our community, who are from the Ukraine, have family there and friends. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And as I said, Councilmember Kovar will be speaking to that a bit later. Next on our agenda, we have a member of our Ethics Commission joining us this evening. Mike Muley is one of our commissioners, and we need to swear him in so he can get his job done. So Mike, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Mike Muley.
I, Mike Muley.
Do swear that I will support the Constitution.
Do swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States.
Of the United States.
And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
To the state of Maryland.
To the state of Maryland.
And support the Constitution and laws thereof.
And support the Constitution and laws thereof.
And that I will.
And that I will.
To the best of my ability, to the best of my skill and judgment.
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of Ethics Commissioner for the City of Tacoma Park
Ethics Commissioner for the City of Tacoma Park
in the state of Maryland,
in the state of Maryland,
according to the Constitution and laws of the state
according to the Constitution and the laws of the state,
and the charter and code of the City of Tacoma Park.
and the charter and code of the City of Tacoma Park.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike, for being willing to be an ethics commissioner for the city. We very much appreciate your time and willingness to volunteer for the city.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Next, today is March, and March is Women's History Month. So we have a proclamation for that I will read out. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our communities in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas in shattering glass ceilings and overcoming discrimination, harassment, and hardships, women have been bold and fearless, and thereby widening the circle of opportunities for women and girls and creating stronger, healthier communities. And whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of life in our communities, and whereas women have served as leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas women have served our country courageously in the military and were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions. And whereas far too often women's heroic efforts and their stories have gone untold, especially those of the millions of Black women, immigrant women, Indigenous women, and others from diverse communities who have strengthened our communities across generations. And whereas in remembering the trailblazers of the past and the heroines of the present day, we honor their legacies by carrying forward the valuable lessons learned from their powerful examples they set. And whereas women have long advocated for compassionate treatments and new directions in public health and women's mental and physical health, women have historically led the way in mending divisions, healing wounds, and finding peaceful solutions. And whereas this year's theme, Providing Healing, Promoting Hope, honors the ceaseless work of caregivers and frontline workers during this ongoing pandemic, and also recognizes women of all cultures who have provided both healing and hope throughout history. And whereas this year's theme honors those who, in both public and private life, provide healing and promote hope for the betterment of all. And therefore, I, Kate Stewart, Mayor of the City of Tacoma Park, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Women's History Month in the City of Tacoma Park, and I urge all residents to join me in this special observance celebrating the contributions that women have given to history throughout. Have given to society throughout history, excuse me. Okay, and that is our proclamation for this evening. Next, we will move to our legislative update, and I believe we have Anne or Suhani with us. Suhani's here. Great. I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. So I have two kind of main category of items to report back on. First is just a couple of general items. So we're a little bit past the halfway point right now in session, so we're marching along. The crossover date will be March 21st, so anything introduced in the House will have to be passed, move over to the Senate, vice versa. Another kind of general update is just that the operating budget decision-making process is about to start. And this year it's going to be starting in the Senate, so they'll be making the decision first this year. Over this past week and then throughout this week, there's a couple major items that the City of Tacoma Park is weighing in on. We submitted testimony on the Comprehensive Climate Solutions Bill, which is Chairman Barvey's bill on the House side. We're waiting on some Senate side amendments for the Climate Solutions Now bill, which is Senator Pinsky's. We're also weighing in again on the Safe Access for All bill, which is a pedestrian safety bill. This is Delegate Charkoudian's bill on the House side, Senator Waldstreicher on the Senate side. So the Senate hearing will be coming up next week, and we'll be putting in some written testimony on that. And we're also weighing in through written testimony on a gun safety storage bill, which is Senator Smith's bill. And that'll be heard in judicial proceedings. And those are the main highlights for the week.
Great. Thank you so much, Suhani. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question for Suhani. Is it possible, can you get an update on HB 1061, local government condominium and homeowners association repair and rehabilitation funds? It looks like it's a really interesting piece of legislation that could help condos in Tacoma Park.
Absolutely. And sorry, Councilmember Smith, you said HB 1061. Is that right?
That's it. Yes.
Great. Okay. I'll jot that down and I'll follow up via email on the
All
bill.
right. That'd be great because Mako provided testimony recently.
Okay. It's good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Any other questions? All right, not seeing anything. Thank you, Suhani, for the update and your continued work representing the city in Annapolis this session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Now, moving along, we will turn to public comments this evening. First, we'll take public comments on voting items. Our one voting item this evening is our second reading ordinance approving the American Rescue Plan Act and a budget amendment. And I have Mr. Paul Hubner. And I hope folks will just bear with us a little bit.
I think I got
right, there you go, Mr. Hubner, go ahead.
Good evening and thank you. Paul Hubner, Ward 3. 2 weeks ago, I raised the issue of ARPA funds, our federal tax dollars being diverted from human needs to overdue, over budget, poorly planned, and still unexecuted city capital projects, the police atrium and the library. I inquired of the proposed $3 to $5 million library that is currently estimated at $13 million, which still has not one bid from a qualified contractor. So we don't really know how much it will cost yet. I was directed to the city website, which indicated to me that the council was also unsure what was being built and for how much. City staff proposed to divert over $4 million to this endeavor from ARPA funds for human needs. I also asked about the city staff recommendation to divert $1.2 million in ARPA funds, reduced to $1 million by the council, to the police atrium, conveniently renamed Community Center renovation. Of the 6 questions I asked, only my question about cost to date were answered. $121,135 out of the FY19 approved amount of $427,000. Of that, $121,135 already spent. $85,316 of which was spent on architectural drawings. So I ask again, where are these drawings we already paid for? Where are the latest drawings that are the basis for the request for the $1.2 million from ARPA funds? What was the other $35,819 of monies already spent? What was it spent on? Were the architectural drawings on which we spent $85,000 put out to bid? If not, why not? If so, what was the winning bid number? What has happened to the remaining $305,865? And why was this renovation capital project charged to the Equipment Reserve Fund? And why was this project, which was due by fall of 2019, not been completed? Since Ms. Clark presented the ARPA staff proposed allocations, I ask who or what department submitted the proposal to divert $1.2 million of pandemic cost human needs to the police atrium renovation project. I remind you that the third council priority is a fiscally sustainable government. Of additional note is the fact that improving transparency was a first-tier priority. Answers to all these questions are a matter of transparency and of having the council answer to city residents about budgets, about spending, about oversight, about accountability, and about responsibility. I'm still waiting for my answers. Please advise, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubner. Our next voting item this evening that we have public comment on will be the first reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on the 7900 block of Glenside Drive. And I have Dawn Reeves up for public comment on that? Ms. Reeves with us?
Speak now?
Ms. Reeves, oh, yeah,
Okay,
you got it.
sorry.
Okay.
It wasn't letting me in anyway. Thank you. I don't have any additional comments than, what I had said last week, but I just wanted to say that I had checked the agenda. I looked at the ordinance. I'm very happy to see that you are proposing to approve the traffic calming measures, and just hope that everybody votes in favor. And that's all. So thanks.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Thank you for coming tonight and your advocacy on this. Next, we have comments on other matters. And first we have Ms. Priscilla Labowitz.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council and the city clerk and the city manager and the new ethics commissioner. My name is Priscilla Labowitz, and I'm here to speak with you about Lunch and Learn again. I'm the president of Lunch and Learn, and this being Women's History Month, I should say, I'm the first woman president of Lunch and Learn, and the first president. So for 10 years now, with Tacoma Park's support, Lunch and Learn has provided a free academic summer day camp for hundreds of children in Tacoma Park, mostly children of color and residents of Tacoma Park's apartment buildings on Maple Avenue and New Hampshire Avenue. Their parents work all day, often multiple jobs, and the kids are home by themselves, if not in camp. And these kids' families don't have the money to send them even to Tacoma Park's camps. Without Lunch and Learn, they're in those apartments all summer, all day, no backyards, no playgrounds nearby, no adult supervision, and they're probably just watching television. At best, they're watching television and playing video games and losing much of what they've learned over the school year. And their parents are grateful to Lunch and Learn and to Tacoma Park, which until now has supported Lunch and Learn. Lunch and Learn feeds the children 2 meals a day. Would these kids make decent lunches for themselves if they were home in their apartments? Their teachers are from MCPP, Montgomery County Public Schools, but Lunch and Learn pays those teachers. They teach the children English, math, science, civics. They learn to swim, which so many children of color can't do. Last summer, Lunch and Learn took the kids to the National Aquarium in Baltimore. Only 2 of them had ever been to an aquarium. A substantial number of Lunch and Learn alums have gone on to college and earned degrees. This program has had splendid results for 10 years and won wide praise, including from many of you on the council whom I saw in the various Lunch and Learn videos when you went and talked with the kids. You and we are worried about the budget, not having money to fund everything. However, ask yourselves, what's more important to our shared commitment to work for racial equity and for our children than keeping Lunch and Learn alive for another summer? From our multi-million-dollar budget, please just give Lunch and Learn $45,000 as you have for the past years. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ms. Barbara Whitney speaking public comments on other matters.
Hi, everybody. I'm from the Climate Action Coffee Group, so it's our little weekly comment. So what's wrong with English ivy and other invasive species? That was the title of yesterday's forum presented by CAC Climate Action Coffee and Public Works in the person of Anna Mishajan. And we partnered to present a Zoom forum during National Invasive Species Awareness Week. Anna helped to recruit speakers, provide the Zoom link with the city, helped CAC to publicize the forum. And that's probably why we had 275 people register, and we had an attendance of 134 at the highest. These were enthusiastic people. They had tons of questions and comments. We were all surprised by the interest. The speakers were from Montgomery County Weed Warriors, National Capital Prism Invader Detectives, the Sierra Club, CCAN, Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And so they all talked about their programs, which use hundreds of local volunteers to help with a problem which has gotten out of hand. And that problem is namely that invasive species are destroying the balance of our ecosystems. And that's making them more vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Native plants support healthy, balanced ecosystems, but invasives do not. And Anna is working really hard to make that in our public parks and public spaces. The presentations yesterday showed how public policy can make a difference by guiding and increasing individual actions. And the invasive species issue is such a hot topic that it's on the agenda at the state level, especially in the form of Representative Eric Ledke's bill to curb what is called the presence of plant invaders in the mid-Atlantic. And we want to thank you, our little climate action group, because we are pretty small, for supporting resident-initiated efforts to mitigate the effects of climate change. And our city has declared a climate change emergency. You all have hired a wonderfully effective vegetation management supervisor in Anna Mishajan. You also have created the sustainability position with equally helpful Gina Mathias. She worked with us on our CAC pollinator group, where we also had a forum last June. And she's continuing to help us with some other projects. Climate Action Coffee tomorrow night will have an evening meeting. We usually meet Wednesday mornings, and we will have Melissa Williams from Montgomery County Minor Master Plan. She's, I guess, a community engagement planner, and some people interested in food forests and Milwaukee forests that might be we might be able to plant in DC in Tacoma Park. And we have lots of other things coming up, including Pollinator Week in June. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Whitney. That concludes our public comments for this evening. Next, we will move to council comments. Any council comments this evening? Councilmember Kovar.
Thank you, Mayor. And first, I want to thank those who spoke. And in particular, I'm pleased that Barbara Whitney just mentioned that invasive species event. I was really impressed with the number of people who participated. I was able to be on there for most of it. And for those who haven't yet, I've only done it once, but I was able on one Saturday to join the Chesapeake Climate Action Network invasive vine removal project. And it was really a fun thing to do and kind of interesting and a good way to get some exercise. So it's on their website, CCAN's website, and you can sign up and spend a few hours on a Saturday cutting down invasive vines. And it's a good way to strike a small blow for climate change and for beauty in the city, and also to meet some folks who share those values. So I encourage people to do it. The mayor mentioned this briefly at the beginning of the meeting, and I just wanted to follow up on her comments about Ukraine, and I appreciate very much that she mentioned it. I think the world is seeing the horror of what Vladimir Putin is doing, and I think it's him in many ways more even than a lot of the Russian people, because there are protests going on in Russia against what he's doing. And in my own case, I'll just mention my wife is 50% of her ancestry is Ukrainian, and we also have other relatives who have married into a family from Ukraine. So a couple of them are here in the U.S., but the rest are there. And we notice which cities are being attacked, and that's where some of the folks live. So I'm aware of that in a maybe a more personal way, but I really think it should be personal to anybody in the country to see democracy being threatened in this way. And I was really struck by when Putin, in sort of in a perverse way, trying to justify what he's doing, said, well, they're going in there to clear out the Nazis and the drug addicts. And I think these authoritarians love to, they accuse everybody of being what they are. So he's basically the one who's acting like a Nazi. I don't know about whether he's a drug addict or not, but when the president of the country is Jewish and then they've attacked or their bombs at least have damaged or destroyed the Holocaust Museum in the capital city, you can see what's going on. So I conferred briefly with the mayor about this, and I haven't had a chance to talk to my colleagues yet, but I'm planning to draft up a resolution that I hope we would be able to vote on and adopt in an upcoming meeting to express our solidarity with the people of Ukraine and putting it into the larger context and the fight for democratic values and against authoritarianism in the country. And so I'll just mention that to my colleagues and hope we can all back that. And I'll be sending that around in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kovar. Councilwoman Costick.
Thank you very much. And thank you for those comments, Councilmember Kovar. I'm definitely supportive of that. And I hope that we could specifically call out support for refugees from Ukraine. And there are some specific efforts to advocate for providing temporary protected status to Ukrainians who are in the US presently as well. I want to also thank public commenters. Mr. Huebner, I will follow up with you. I sent you a quick email. If you could just send me a couple of your questions. I tried to jot them down, but I'm not sure I got all of them. So that would be helpful. A couple of things. One is we got notice this week that Sligo Creek Parkway is going to be closed from Maple to Old Carroll starting next week. And it's part of a trail repair project, which is a great thing. And I'm really glad that they are working to provide pedestrian and bike access while the trail needs to be closed there. But it does push traffic onto Lincoln Avenue and through that very dangerous Lincoln Carroll intersection on an everyday basis, potentially for 4 weeks. So I'm very concerned about what that means for safety at that intersection. And I've asked Public Works to be in touch with MNC PPC. I really appreciate Daryl reaching out to them. And hopefully we can get some more information and find some safety improvements we can make there in the meantime so that we can help reduce the potential for dangerous interactions there. Also, just got word that the voting is finished in the Sligo Mill sidewalk request process. So that's going to be moving on to the design phase. I'm looking forward to seeing the results on that. And then finally, I took part in a meeting today for the National League of Cities, where we saw some of the data that they got from a nationwide survey of cities related to perspectives and funding on childcare and after-school programs. It's really interesting data, and they built a fantastic dashboard to be able to explore some of that. And I think a lot of what they're seeing is very similar to what we've seen in Tacoma Park as well. So I'll share that out. So it's interesting to dig through some of that, and we might find some things that are useful to us as well. And that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman DeBala.
Yes, thank you. So a couple things. Speaking of Sligo Creek Parkway, there's also concern about the intersection of Sligo and Old Carroll. And I also have asked about whether we can have more, whether any safety measures can be installed at the intersection there as well. As folks come down Sligo Creek Parkway and they hit the road closure and they fly left across a crosswalk and up that hill. And then, as Councilmember Kostick said, and then barrel across to Lincoln. So we as a city, I think it behooves us to continue to make sure that those kinds of safety measures are installed on a temporary basis. So thank you, Councilmember Kostick, for bringing that up. Two other things. Saturday, Montgomery County Public Schools is doing a youth climate summit up in Gaithersburg. And I think a number of students from Tacoma Park are going to be going. So I just thought I'd mention that to the council. And last but not least, maybe I'm stealing thunder from the city manager, but we received a copy of the Sustainable Investment and Banking Task Force's draft report. And they will be having a meeting on Monday night at which they will hear comment from anybody who cares to virtually register and make comments. And I'll let the city manager say more about that if he wants to. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
First, I would like to thank all the residents for coming out tonight to give council comments. I would like to highlight Ms. Lovowitz, her comment regarding Lunch and Learn. I hope my colleagues will consider the $45,000 request for the program. It has done incredible work for the youth in Tacoma Park. When it was founded, there wasn't anything like it. And I still don't think there is anything comparable to Lunch and Learn. I would say that I would join Councilmember Kovar and his idea for the resolution regarding democracy, but I would also add that we also can say something about the fighting that's going on in Ethiopia, the Sudan, other parts of the world where Black and brown folks are fighting for democracy, and we should highlight in this. We should highlight that in this future resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Searcy.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much to residents who came out and spoke today. Want to just really echo the importance of the traffic calming request on Glenside Drive and support the residents in the New Hampshire Gardens community who are seeking the additional speed bumps. Also want to echo Councilmember Smith's point about the importance of Lunch and Learn and support of additional funding for that program at the $45,000 requested. I know for my ward, a number of my residents, a number of youth participate in that program every year. And keeping in mind the fact that so many of our kids are behind due to the pandemic and due to virtual learning, that is now going to be more critical than ever to make sure that we're able to work collectively as a community to get those children back up to speed. And Lunch and Learn is one vehicle for doing that. So I do support that program. Also want to just let Councilmember Kovar know that I would support a resolution. You know, I think it's important now for us to be able to make the necessary statements, not just, you know, as a form of solidarity, but also to just really prove ourselves to be the sanctuary city that we are by not only standing in solidarity, but opening, figuring out ways to open up our community to those that are seeking refuge. Two more quick updates. Hillwood Manor Playground. So I do want to give one quick update. I know there's been some questions about tree replacement. And I just want to let folks know that although we've had to remove a couple of trees to deal with drainage issues and those trees were compromised, and because of their location or proximity to the playground, I just want to let the residents in Hillwood Manor know that those trees are planned to be replaced. So the trees that we remove will be replaced. I know that you see the removal first, and I just want to have everyone rest assured that we will be replacing those trees. And also just want to thank Mayor Stewart, our Director of Public Works, as well as the police chief. We've been dealing with some signal timing issues at University Boulevard and Hillwood Manor, and New Hampshire Avenue. And lots of residents are experiencing the burn because there's lots of traffic that's backing up through neighborhoods and the like. But we have, the mayor has reached out to SHA, and we are waiting to hear back from them in terms of when they plan to adjust some of that particular signal and the timing of those signals. So I just want to thank all of the staff that have been working on that. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councilwoman Searcy. See, I have a couple of updates this evening. Just want to give everyone an update on the work that the subcommittee of myself, Councilman DeBala, Councilmember Kovar, as well as city staff, Deputy City Manager Jessica Clark, have been meeting with Adventist Healthcare to flush out and address the questions that council had on the proposal they presented to us in November. We've had numerous meetings, took a tour of one of their primary care facilities in Silver Spring, and we're just waiting for their updated proposal so that we can bring that back to council. So just wanted to give an update on that. Thank you, Ms. Whitney, for coming this evening and giving public comments. I was also able to join the webinar this week, and I agree, our vegetation manager supervisor did an excellent job, and we're very lucky to have her and her expertise in the city. In addition, I wanted to raise one of the things that took place this week in our library services, and thank our library director. I was contacted by someone who helps resettle refugees in the area, and they have found homes in Prince George's but needed access to computers and a library, and they actually live closer to our library than the one in Prince George's. So they reached out and asked if they could use our library. And of course, we let folks from Prince George's use our library. So they brought families from who are Sudanese, Burmese, and Afghan families to the library, and everyone in our library was wonderfully helpful to them, connecting them with services, providing COVID tests and masks, and other things. And I just want to say thank you so much to our library staff for doing that work. And I think this is just an excellent example of some of the things that we're able to do to support members of the community through the library and the services it provides. And then I don't know how much time I have left because the clock went away, but I'm just going to keep going for one more second because I want to update everyone on tax duplication. We had a huge historic victory this week. The county council took two actions. One is to provide the municipalities in Montgomery County with the additional funding that we did not receive this year that we should have regarding tax duplication. And that means by June, the city will have over another $400,000 coming to us from the county for duplicative services that we perform. And they adopted new formula that we have been working on with our colleagues in other municipalities and the county exec's office. And just a huge shout out to our deputy city manager who has been working on this the last few months. And I say this is really historic because this has been a council priority for many years. And there have been many task force in the county and other things working on this. And this is the year we actually got it accomplished. So thank you to everyone who has worked on this over the years, and particularly to our deputy city manager for bringing it over the line for us. And then real super quick, yes, I also support Lunch and Learn. I just want to thank Councilmember Smith for all his work for getting that up and running and continuing it over the years and being a strong advocate for it. I also support the city's continued support. And now I will turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. You guys touched on most of the stuff I was going to touch on, so what I would just say, the Councilmember DeBala expressed about the Sustainable Banking Task Force. The only thing that I would say this evening is they have a community meeting that's going to be next Monday. And we'll be working with the task force to get that posted so it's widely out there and advertised. I join in with the mayor as it relates to the tax duplication. It is historic for the community in our city and all of the municipalities in the county. I want to personally thank Mayor Stewart, members of council, our former city manager Suzanne Ludlow, Chief Duvall, Deputy City Manager Jessica Clark, the county council members who voted on this yesterday, MML chapter leadership, the county executive, Mark Elrich and his county staff, and our fellow municipalities for everyone's commitment and advocacy, what I would say over the past decades to bring it over the finish line. And this was a critical step for our community to restore the equity in the county tax rebates, so our residents are not unfairly paying for services that they're not provided. I would also like to share this evening and thank the mayor for the proclamation, but want to acknowledge and recognize on behalf of the city staff this month as Women Histories Month, as we honor and celebrate the contributions of the many women, the women on council, the women on our staff, the women in our community and abroad for the roles that you all have played throughout history. We thank you. And as an organization, we'll be doing things via social media and others as we did with Black History Month. We'll be doing the same for this month as well. And I believe that's all I have this evening, Madam Mayor. Back to you.
Great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question from Mr. Fox? Thank you for those comments. I received a question from a resident, and I do not have an answer, even though I've been working on tax duplication for many, many years. With this new agreement, will it impact the future tax rate for residents in the city? You don't have to answer that question right now, but I just ask if your staff could do some analysis and look into it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It would help us with our budget concerns and challenges that we have. So keeping us at least somewhat whole, and the allocations that the county council voted on, the new formula, the 80%, 9%, and 100% over the next 3 fiscal years will definitely help us. But I said more to come on March 16th when we have the fiscal health of the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you so much. All right, and then I think we will be moving on to our voting session this evening. And our first item is the second reading ordinance approving the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and budget amendment. I think we may be 1 or 2 small changes that council members may have, but overall, this is not changed since we had the first reading of it last week. So I'll ask if someone would like to move the second reading ordinance approving our ARPA plan and budget amendment. Councilman Dabala, you moving it? Yes, and Councilmember Kovar second. Are there any changes or amendments? Councilwoman Dabala.
Yes, I submitted a couple of minor amendments this morning to the deputy city manager, and I am not clear. The note that I got suggested that they were just going to be incorporated, so I don't think that we need to get into them. They were things like fixing a footnote.
Okay, so
adding the word including after a comma. So based on the note I got from her, I think we're good. Thank you for recognizing me.
Okay, great. And I'm seeing our deputy city manager nod her head, so I will assume these were just sort of typos and grammatical things that were fixed. So with that, are there any additional comments before I call the vote? Councilman Costick.
Thank you. Yeah, I have just a question / note. I really appreciate the information I got from the library director, Ms. Jones, in response to some questions about the broadband plans. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think we should move forward with the plans, but I still am a little confused about kind of the fact that there is sort of this free thing that's offered through Comcast, and another thing that municipalities can buy into to support residents. And just want to ask, as we move forward, if we can kind of think through what is the most appropriate way that we kind of bring all that together and make it work in a way that it provides the most assistance to residents and also manages the city's money responsibly. So I don't expect an answer right now, but I know she's thinking that through, but just want to kind of flag that as something as we move forward and think about implementing. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar.
I didn't hear that. Was it?
Are we calling the vote? Councilmember Kovar.
Your
voice is very faint.
Uh-oh.
You sound very far away.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, and I vote aye. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councilmember Kovar. Great. Councilmember DeBala.
Yes.
Councilmember Costick.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy.
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right. That's great. Second readings always seem a little anticlimactic, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for all their hard work. There's much more to do, but we will now move forward with that. Next, we have the first reading ordinances regarding traffic calming, and I'm going to ask the city clerk. We need to take each of these individually. Is that correct? Versus move them all?
I honestly think that for now, let's just do them individually. I didn't get a chance to sort it out.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So first, we have the first reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on the 7900 block of Glenside Drive. Would someone like to move that? Councilman Searcy moved. Do I have a second? Councilman DeBala second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala. Councilmember Costick.
Aye.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy.
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. Next is the first reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on the 6700 and the 6800 blocks of Prince George's Avenue. Would someone like to move that? Councilman DeBala, do I have a second? Councilman Costick, any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala.
Yes.
Councilmember Costick.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay, Councilmember Searcy.
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. Next is the first reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on the 6400 and the 6500 blocks of 4th Avenue. Does someone want to move that? Councilman Costick moves. Do I have a second? Councilman Searcy, any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala.
Yes.
Councilmember Costick.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy.
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right, that concludes our voting session for this evening. We will now move on to our 2 work sessions. The first is the procurement of police mobile data terminals, and I will turn over to the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council and mayor, this evening, we will have Lieutenant Holmes cover our critical and crucial mobile data computers that we need for our police vehicles. These replacement infrastructure is needed because of the MDTs are aging. The total cost of these MDTs to be replaced is about $148,000. This was a request and approval that went through our internal process, through our IT steering committee. And this is a sole source contract through the GSA. And the expenditure was in the fiscal year 22 capital budget. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Powell or Lieutenant Holmes, whoever's going to take this one.
Sure, I can talk on it. So basically our mobile data terminals are the computers, our Panasonic Toughbooks that the officers use in their computers that allow us to work off our computer-aided dispatch system as well as GPS so we can track the officer's whereabouts, allows the officers to do field reporting without having to come into the station to better serve the community. Our computers are aging. Our youngest computer we currently have was manufactured in 2015. Our oldest computer we currently have was manufactured in 2012. As you know, with technology, as soon as you pretty much get it, it's pretty much obsolete. So most of those computers were built to work with Windows 7 to integrate with Montgomery County's CAD system that we utilize. We've had to upgrade to Windows 10. Windows 10 has now disrupted those computers and cut down a lot of their functionality. So we are simply updating technology that we currently have. It is in conjunction with the IT committee. We've done everything through the IT services department, and we feel this is in the best nature and ability for us to serve the community.
Great. Anyone have any questions?
I would just like to say I support this. I think this is a great idea. I wish we could have done this much earlier. And going forward, I hope that the police department comes to the council in a shorter period of time, in a more regular period of time, so that we can give you the equipment that the officers need. Thank you.
Councilwoman
Thank you.
Searcy?
Great. Thank you so much. So will this cover the full upgrade for all of the computers that are needed, or are we taking a phased approach?
So this should cover all of them. What it is also, Windows 7 is basically timed out. It's no longer supported through Microsoft. So we've had to make those upgrades. When we made them, it actually cut out the functionality of many of our computers. So this is something that's a must do for us in order to maintain our serviceability to the community. The other thing that we have done is when I first came to the department, a lot of our commanders worked off desktop systems, but that doesn't help us when we need to be in the community for high profile events and to be able to be mobile as well as to work from home when we need to, if we have late night, late evening events that we need to get on right away. So we've also structured it so that our commanders as well as our criminal investigators in the field can use these mobile data terminals. So again, it increases our functionality to service the community.
Great. And are there any additional like security features that cybersecurity kind of related matters that also are being upgraded, or is it just replacing the computers, updating the software? And
it's upgraded the computers, upgraded the software. The computer software, the dual authentication system, is something that is built into the program when we use CAD anyway. But we are always upgrading our security. It's not going to be something that's going to come at an additional cost, though.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm in support of this. I think it's really important to make sure that officers, when they're in the field, have the technology that they need to document things. I think it's better in terms of record keeping to be able to document things in real time, and having those technologies available enable them to do that. So yeah, no, I think this is really helpful, and I'm glad that you all came to us and explained the need for the upgrade. I'm also glad that we're doing them all at the same time, and we're not necessarily taking a phased approach with providing the necessary upgrades.
Thank you, Councilman Costick.
Thank you. I just had a comment about the ordinance. I noticed that it didn't actually note the dollar amount, and I just would like to ask if we could add that in. I think that would be useful when we vote on it. Thanks.
And Actually, I had something similar to that, and I don't know if it needs to be in the ordinance, but the cover page for when this comes back, and I know it says we budgeted for this in the budget. In the past, when we usually actually call out the amount that we budgeted and say whether or not it's, was it a little less, was it a little bit more than what was budgeted for an item. So if we could just include that as well.
Yeah, we're, Madam Mayor, we're actually a little under budget on this. We had budgeted 150,000.
Perfect. That's even better, and even a better reason why to put it in the cover sheet. So thank you for that. Councilwoman Demola?
I was actually going to say the same thing. I looked it up. It was 150,000. And in the future, yeah, if you could save us the trouble looking it up, that would be great. I'm supportive of this. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Great. Oh, and I should have said I'm supportive as well. So wonderful. All right. I think that is it. Thank you for joining our meeting this evening. And we will bring that back for a vote next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next work session this evening was to be a vote, but I can't believe we actually got ARPA done before we got redistricting done in this back and forth. But I will turn it back over to the city manager to tee this up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, there was a lot of conversation at the last council meeting as it relates to redistricting, and there's been some analysis done by Kate as well as the Madam City Clerk. And I know Kate is here from Flow Analytics, and I will turn it over to Madam Clerk. Are you going to kick it off, or you want me to give it to Kate?
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Yes, Kate, take it away. Yes.
So I
Bring
can
us home on this issue.
Yeah, I can show a great presentation that just shows the difference between the two maps. I think that we are going to talk about tonight. So let me find the right thing to share. Here we go. All right. So from kind of what I've been talking about with Jesse this week, it looks like it's between this option Y that was talked about at the meeting last week that I wasn't at that meeting, but generally, the changes were adding the Sherman Ave section to Ward 4 and the Grant Ave section to Ward 1. So that was kind of a decision that was made, and also going with option Y. And I just wanted to call attention to kind of where the deviations are falling for these options. And so another option that came up earlier this week was this option Y-1, which uses option Y, but moves one block back into Ward 5 to allow for a lower deviation overall. So I can go through those two maps. Let me go into there we go. Okay. So this is option Y. These are all of the split blocks that we had talked about previously, and then adding 90 people to Ward 5 where the university blocks are, because those were really low. So these are, it's all the blocks that you see here, and then these, edits. So that was what was discussed last week. And then looking at the numbers again, just wanting to, make sure that everyone understands the numbers and everything. Y1 would move this block here into Ward 5 because Ward 5, the deviation is really low for Ward 5 in this option. So moving one more block into Ward 5 to bring that up closer to, closer to an equal population, and, an option to move the homes that are just across the street from that block into Ward 5 as well. So if they, if that feels more complete, then we could move that in as well. Adding more people into Ward 5 is always going to be better for option Y. And so that's the change I think that we're talking about tonight. And then I know that we've sent the statistics for option Y, option Z, with and without Sherman and Grant, with and without we're calling it the Jefferson, Lincoln, Carroll block. But this is what it really gets distilled down to. If you just have the census block. So if you're just looking at the people in these blocks with no splits, no adding 90 people, the option Y is at 13% and Y1 is at 9%, mostly because that one block moves into Ward 5. That's how much of a difference it makes. And it's 63 people in that block, plus, you know, the 5 houses across the street. When you add in the neighborhood splits, option Y gets better. At the mid-range deviation, just a reminder, is that, you know, average 2.63 people per house. A high range deviation assumes 4 people per house, just to kind of see how those numbers play out. So again, in this case, when you're moving, you know, a lot of these splits, especially for option Y, these two splits between 2 and 3 kind of balance each other out. These ones between 4 and 1 kind of balance each other out. So you're seeing something pretty similar, even when you introduce all of those splits, because we're kind of almost trading between wards. So you have the lower deviation, again, just because Ward 5 is lower overall in, you know, what you're starting from. Then when you add the 90 residents into Ward 5, this is where we, you know, finally for option Y get under 10% with that mid-range deviation. So this is assuming that they're all single family homes, assuming there's 2.63 people per home in each home that is moving. You get a deviation that's 8.6%. If it is more people than that are moving, then you get 9.6%. So you're getting like even closer. And so where the split areas are estimates based on the number of homes and not exactly the number, you know, we don't know the exact number of people. And we don't know the number of people that filled out the census in those split areas as well. So that, you know, if it's more people, you are getting close to that 10% range. And I wouldn't be able to say whether you are or are not under that 10% range for option Y. For Y1, when you add those 90 residents in, again, you see that big decrease because we are adding people into Ward 5. So instead of it being minus 8.4%, you know, below the ideal population, here you're getting it, you know, close. I think it's somewhere around 5% under here. And then you've got it closer to 3% here. You've got it, you know, Ward 5 minus 8% is coming up closer to minus 5%. So you're just a little more sure about, you know, with these numbers, I feel like you're definitely under 10% deviation. No matter how many people are in those split areas, you still, you know, it's still not enough people to get this, you know, under, or yeah, you'll keep it under 10%. So I think the big picture here is it's really Ward 5 and not wanting it to be so far under the ideal population. I believe it's in option Y, I believe it's 5.7% under the ideal. And that's just for one ward. So, you know, this option gets it closer to 3% under, which is much closer to basically how much Ward 6 is over. I think 3 is over by 2.3%, you know, so it's more in this kind of balance with the other wards versus having one ward that's a lot further under. And so, you know, just thinking about the desire to balance the populations between the wards, the fact that we are using 90 residents here and not 200, which is what I think we were hoping to use. This is kind of how the numbers play out with the various splits, adding in those residents and which blocks we're looking at. Okay, that's it. That's kind of, I think, where we are at this point. Anything else, Jesse?
Sorry, you've covered it. No, I have nothing else.
Okay. Given that this impacts particularly Ward 5 and residents who are currently in Ward 3, I'd like to turn first to Councilmember Smith and Councilman Kostick to see if you have anything to add to the presentation Kate just did.
I would just say that I'm fine with the high deviation. You know, the last thing you want to do is bring people into your ward that do not want to be there. So I would be fine with the high deviation.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilman Kostick?
Thanks. Thank you for all this information, and thank you for turning around that Y1 map very quickly so I could show it to the neighborhood. That was really helpful. I feel like you've become a fixture at our meetings too, Kate. We're going to miss you. So I've checked in with the neighborhood that's particularly impacted here. It's the Jefferson Lincoln Carroll neighborhood that would either be in Ward 5 or Ward 4. The feedback I've gotten was, top priority is they want to be kept together, which is something that I think we've been able to achieve with the census block splits. They do feel much more kind of generally aligned with Ward 4 than Ward 5 in terms of there being a pretty significant space between themselves and most of Ward 5. There's Sligo Creek Parkway, Sligo Creek, there's a hill, and then there's, immediately next to them is, on the other side of that creek is the university and the hospital. So there's this fairly large area where there just really aren't a lot of people living to kind of connect with as neighbors usually do. So I think in general, they're a little more aligned towards Ward 4, which they spend a little more time in and kind of are walking through a little more frequently. One of the, I am probably okay with the higher deviation, although my concern is a little less with the high deviation and a little more with making sure we don't have Ward 4. I don't think it's necessarily ideal for Ward 4 to be, I think it's the most populous ward in that option there. I'd like, for equity reasons to have Ward 4 be a little smaller, compared to some of the others potentially. And so that makes me a little nervous. The question I had posed, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it, was considering instead of moving that Jefferson Lincoln Carroll block, there are 2 multifamily buildings near the intersection of Hilltop and Maple that are much closer to the rest of Ward 5. And just wondering if you have a sense of what the population there might be, and if I don't know if that's something that would be amenable to the residents there or not, but if that moving those from Ward 4 into Ward 5 might be an alternative.
Yeah, so Jesse and I were looking at that earlier. I think it was 22 bedroom units in those 2 buildings is what Jesse had told me. And so if you kind of applied the same number, because I don't know how many people live in all of those units, but if you did some kind of average, the same average, it would be something like 53 people, which is pretty similar to the other block has about 63 people that would be moving in this case. And so if you moved 53 people, the numbers would be basically anyone that you could move into Ward 5 would be great from Ward 4, So any movements in those directions. The only caveat is then you have another split area, and anytime you split an area, you're losing specificity on demographics for that ward, and you don't know, you just kind of have an unknown for how many people are living there, and then what the demographics are for the people that are moving from one ward to another. So, introducing another split, I think that's why we wanted to present this. What if we kept this whole block in Ward 5? Because it's a known entity, with that block. But I do think that having equal population is also very important, for equity, like you were saying. So, because it does give, if Ward 5 has is representing fewer people, it gives more voting power to Ward 5. I believe I'm doing that in the right order, and less to Ward 4. And so any way to kind of even those out. But it is, the way that Ward 5 is currently shaped makes geographic sense. And then it's low, and then you need to start going to places that are across major roads or across a stream or across a bridge. And, yeah. So I think, but, in terms of the numbers, you might be at 6.5%, 6.8%, somewhere in there for that deviation for the mid-range, I would imagine.
Thank you. I'm curious to hear from Councilmember Siemens his thoughts on that, and my other colleagues as well.
Next, I have Councilman Devala, and then I'll see if Councilmember Siemens has any comments.
I was going to say, if Councilmember Siemens, since it's his ward that we're talking about, probably should go ahead and go first. Or not.
That's good. I thank you. And I know it's hard to see. My hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not see it. My apologies.
Well, that's my background. I think they did it, but it was for the Women's History Month that we did this background. Anyways, yeah, I think we've nailed it. I mean, we spent a lot of time on these last few people and shifting people around. And I feel comfortable with the deviations. You know, I think, like I said, there's been a lot of work put into this, and I think the results of this redistricting have come out better than what I've seen in the past. We've gone more towards the census blocks, had fewer splits, and tried to reshape the wards. Haven't maybe done things perfectly, but I think we've done, I use this term loosely since I didn't do anything but sit here and say yes or no. But I think that Kate and her organization have done a fantastic job in going through these numbers and working with Jesse on getting us to this point. And as far as Ward 4 being the most populous ward, should we go ahead and pass this, I would be embarrassed that somehow one of my colleagues has figured that out and realized that I don't have to run for mayor to get more people. So I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Devala.
Yes, just a couple of things. I agree that I was satisfied last week. I'm a little concerned about, with all respect to Councilmember Costick's diligence, that I really appreciate that. I'm a little uncomfortable with moving folks around who said what they wanted and moving folks around who haven't had a chance to say anything. But more to the point, in our housing strategic plan, it says that the household size in Tacoma Park is on average smaller than Montgomery County generally. So I'm comfortable with the mid-range and even the low range assumptions. The high range assumptions, I think we can throw out for purposes of Tacoma Park. And I've been trying to tease out of the Data Explorer a more precise number. Someone who knows more about data management than me is going to have to do that. I know it's in there somewhere, but I am sure that the strategic plan, which was produced by a consultant quite some time ago, does say pretty definitively that the household size here is smaller. So that affects the deviation as well. And that's, I think, really all I had to say. Thank you.
Great. Not seeing any other hands. I'm going to say, based on the council comments that we've heard this evening, that people are comfortable moving forward with the map Y as we looked at, and thank Kate and our city clerk for their due diligence in raising this issue with us, just to do another check. But what I'm hearing is that council is comfortable with moving forward with map Y. Any objections to that, or I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone? All right, not seeing any, then we will, Councilman, no, you're good, okay. Not seeing anything, then we will bring this back for a vote. next week, and then the week after, and then we'll be done with redistricting. Good. Any other questions? No, then Kate, I think this actually really may be your last meeting with us.
I have to start going to my local city council meetings. I'm gonna be missing out.
And we do. I think it was Councilmember Siemens who may have just said this, but that this was, he felt a really good process, and I just want to reiterate that, and all the thanks on behalf of our city council for all your work on this. I think it was a very good process. Your recommendations, the maps, how quickly you turned around things that we could look at, and compiling and digesting the community input. Thank you so much for all your work over the last few months with us.
You're welcome. And it's been very interesting and just it's energizing to work with a community who's so into redistricting. So that's been really fun because I'm really into it. So it's fun to work with a group, with the city council, and also your whole community who's been so helpful in providing that information to us. So
great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our city clerk for all her work on this. So I think that concludes our work session. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the last thing on our agenda, correct? All right, well, we will end our meeting then before 9 o'clock this week. Get some rest though, because next week's going to be a doozy. It's a packed schedule, and we're back in person next week. For members of the public, please check out the city website. We will be doing a hybrid public comment. So as well as having people on Zoom. So just as you've been doing for the last 2 years, you can do that and sign up ahead of time. We do the signups ahead of time just to make sure that no one Zoom bombs our meetings. So we still request that you sign up by 5 p.m. the day of if you want to be there virtually. And then in person, you can come in person. There's no sign up necessary to come and give public comments in person. And we'll be setting up the auditorium so people will be distancing themselves from that. City staff and the city council will be in person. City manager, did I forget anything?
No, Madam Mayor, I think you touched on everything.
Great. Awesome. Then we are done for the evening. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week in person. Yes. And bring your masks. We still have our mask mandate for our city buildings. Thank you, Councilman Ball. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.